engaging emerging topical issues in the politics.
The mere fact that we pay for 24 million liters of petrol on a daily basis, which is not is shocking. And I think by now people should be resigning their appointment.
It's supposed to be a business, but it has become another arm of government, and it's also suffering from the malaise that have bedeviled government in Nigeria.
We want a good Nigeria first.
People that are benefiting at the IOCs. Why? Because they have a tax regime, a royalty regime that was framed over 42 years ago.
Good ball in. Still with Morocco. Surely.
Explore Africa.
Encounter Africa.
Engage Africa.
Enjoy Africa's compelling,
exciting,
and breathtaking
experience
with Kakaki,
the African voice.
Now listen. The law is now beyond argument that the effect of a nullification of a thing, not necessarily an election, the effect of nullification of a thing is to completely wipe out, obliterate, remove, undo, erase, or render it ineffective.
Why must Nigerians pay the crime that has been perpetrated by the cabal?
Thanks for staying with us on African Independent Television, AIT, your channel of choice at this time. And if you're just joining us, you are right on time and you are where you should be, because it's time for Focus Nigeria. The Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mrs. Aruma Ote, is heading for a fresh collision with the House of Representatives again, as the House Ad hoc Committee insists she must be present before it by 10 a.m. this morning, in continuation of the public hearing into what went wrong with the Nigerian capital market. Aruma Ote appeared on Monday to make a lengthy presentation, but apparently there was no ample time for questions and answers, and so the hearing was adjourned to Tuesday. But when the committee resumed yesterday, it was confronted by a letter from Ote where she explained that she could no longer appear before the committee, having spent much time since last week before the hearings eventually resumed. Ote also recounted how she had pleaded to be heard first when the public hearing started, but her request was rejected. The SEC Director General also explained that because of the need to attend some other crucial meetings, including one with Mr. President this morning, it will be better for her to respond to such questions in writing. Our request, which fell on the wrong side of the committee chairman, Honorable El Sudi, and this was how he reacted.
Has an aura of arrogance and looks down upon the integrity and authority of the National Assembly. The National Assembly is not under the control of the executive. It is an independent arm of the government duly recognized by the Constitution and acts in accordance with various sections of the Constitution. This committee has been fair to everyone that appeared before it. We will not sit here and allow anybody to undermine the National Assembly. Appearance before this committee or any of the committees of the National Assembly is not a matter of personal idiosyncrasy or discretion. Mrs. Aruma Ote and all the commissioners of SEC are hereby ordered to appear before this committee by 10 a.m. tomorrow, 9th May 2012, unfailingly. Otherwise, we shall be compelled to invoke the necessary provisions of the law.
Honorable Aminu S. Sudi, the chairman of the House Ad hoc Committee that is looking into the crisis of the crisis in the Nigerian capital market. Well, who do we believe here now? The House or the SecDG that says she has an engagement with Mr. President? Anyway, somehow the issue will be resolved. And the former boss of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Professor Undi Okereke-Oyuke, was at the hearing yesterday. It was head-shaking as well, but we'll just save all of that till tomorrow probably. Let's cross to the red carpet chamber, where Senate President David Mark resumed with his colleagues yesterday. Fresh from a medical trip to Israel, Senator David Mark is back fit as a fiddle as he presided over the proceedings yesterday, and national security and corruption, of course, were issues, obviously, on the mind of the Senate President.
It must be done to improve it, and very quickly too. Clearly, the terrorists have declared war on Nigeria and Nigerians. Escalating acts of terror not only strengthen our unity as a nation, but challenge the very human values we all believe in. In spite of all these bombings, we should not despair, and we must not be disillusioned. We shall overcome through our collective determination. This is the time for concerted action by all Nigerians, ethnicity, political affiliation, religious belief notwithstanding. We have a real problem on our hands, and we must handle it with the seriousness that it deserves, and we should never politicize it. Divisive statements or finger-pointing are not helpful. Attempts to apportion blame for failures at this time or the burgeoning terror threats will not lead to any practical and lasting solution.
So the President David Mark, that's like speaking from the pulpit or from the altar. Well, let the appropriate authorities hear and act. Again, so much happening in the politics in the last 24 hours, and so much more to happen in the next 24 hours. It's gone past 10 o'clock. I'm sure some activities are already going on at the House of Representatives. Again, don't forget that today is Wednesday. We expect the Federal Executive Council to meet as well. And on the part of the executive, still talking about the last 24 hours, much of this week had been spent trying to find solutions to the power problems the nation is facing. On Monday, President Jonathan spent hours rubbing minds with other stakeholders, including state governors, as they brainstormed on how to break the deadlock in the power sector. Now, let's take a clip from the President's address to set the tone for our discussions this morning.
That we must consider very critically is the issue of privatization, which the BP must follow strictly their program. We don't want to hear any story again. They must follow it to the letter, keep it with the date. That we must do in line with the power reform roadmap. Of course, we all agree that it's only through the privatization that we will be able to get to where we want to go. And in doing that, let me use the opportunity to warn that I don't want to hear that they are being influenced by any politician. At least I am the #1 politician now. Even if the person is my mother or my uncle, I don't want to hear that, oh, somebody is from the president, somebody is from the vice president, somebody is from this, somebody is from that. If you make mistake, you're on your own, and we'll deal with it decisively. Because, in fact, when I entered the group that discussed the privatization, I was quite impressed when Ike gave the analogy, I think I guess it's Ike, that we are talking about the successes in the telecommunications. If people like MTN didn't come in early enough with the resources they have, probably the story would have been different. And he gave the the change of name and change of everything about Econet. Change from one name to the other and one name from the other, and at the same time it's still changing. So, and the governor of Cross River State has also warned that the rate of failure in terms of power privatization globally is quite high. That means that we must give to the best. I remember, I'm not going to mention name, but an MD of a very powerful company came to me, of course, that president were interested, but we learned that already people have taken all these positions, and that the EU encouraged us to go in and say nobody has taken any position. And the BPE will never make mistake to give this to companies that cannot perform. You must follow it. This is international process we are following. So I want to assure all Nigerians and all the companies that have indicated interest that there will be no political manipulation. Everything will be followed professionally. And only the best can get it. We are not going to play politics like Moke said with this privatization of these power programs. And let me also now tell the chairman of the NERC that issue of tariff, I think we've decided at 1st of June, but I'm not sure that we are having robust advocacy. And this happened to me when the governors, like luckily Governor River State is here, all agreed about the deregulation. And said, look, we have not informed Nigeria. In fact, at the time, I said I wanted to send a team to the states to work with the governors. I think Governor Bentley then suggested that no, if we do that, there will be conflicts in some states. So the governors will take charge. At the end of the day, by the day we announced the deregulation, almost everything was on my head. I'm coming amazing. I'm not saying you did not support, you supported. Everything was Jonathan. To the extent that the House of Rep also have to meet on a Sunday to discuss it. It became an issue. At the point, some of the governors, I have not called the names, who participated in pressurizing me, started shifting back. But I said, well, I must, even if they will cut off my head, it's my responsibility. But all what I'm saying is that, look, you don't have robust advocacy. By the time we get to that 1st June, the civil society will come and tell us that they have never had you. Luckily, you're one of them, so it will be, it will be better, but we want enough communication so that we don't get to that 1st of June and say, look, Nigerians have not been sufficiently informed, let us act 3 months. Ordinarily, the deregulation would have commenced early in 2011. Ordinarily, supposed to have been February 2011 or so. Of course, that is why there is this controversy whether we budgeted for it or we did not budget for it. The 2011 budget only made provision for 2 months because we had to deregulate from about February or so. This is still the controversy now. I wouldn't want a situation where we get at that point and we start shifting. Please, Amadi, you are a very strong character. And you and your team must make sure that Nigerians are properly informed and that we are not shifting from that 1st June. Then, of course, the issue of gas, luckily the minister is here. We also participated in their discussion. I think she was carried away because I even asked whether she was a policewoman.
President Goodluck Jonathan speaking on Monday when he declared open the presidential roundtable. And, of course, the man he put on the spot right there, Dr. Sam Amadi, is here with us in the studio. We are going to be putting him on the spot here too. Since he's one of us, Nigerians will be asking him, how come we will be paying more for the light that we have not seen from June? Okay, let's take a quick break to usher Dr. Amadi into the studio to join us for discussions here.
want a good Nigeria.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're starting our discussions now, and you already know what we'll be looking at this morning. Nigerians prepared for the 1st of June, where a new tariff regime in the electricity or in the power sector will come into being. Now, joining me for discussions now is Dr. Sam Amadi, Chairman, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. Good to see you, Dr. Amadi.
Well, thank you.
Amadi, the strong man, according to the president. Well, let me start from the meeting. Has it ended? Because we understand that yesterday the meeting continued.
Well, I think the retreat ended, but yesterday, as usual, President has other meetings. They have an economic management team and so on and so forth. But the one we attended, which was the retreat, ended very late that night. I must say that I think very remarkable. The President sat through the first presentations in the morning, went through all the various working groups. In fact, I was shocked when he came to a working group on privatization with the Vice President. Two of them came and sat just behind us in the crowd and listened very carefully. I think that's very exemplary because leadership, like they say, leadership, one tool of leadership is leadership by moving around. Leadership means sitting with the people, understand the problem, hearing, and then, you don't just wait only on what aides feed you with. Sometimes you want to see, listening to contra views. I think the President would have left that meeting much more informed and can now take much more valuable decisions than previous. It was a fantastic moment. And of course, the people in the room, everybody felt so happy to see the President sit through more than 8 hours of deliberation, listening very carefully. And when he came to speak finally, he sort of summed it perfectly well. The challenge is to effectively and sincerely drive the reform. So it was, for me, probably I would have left if the President wasn't there all the night, all the day, because there are other things to do. But the President was there, everybody had to be there.
Okay. So what's the takeaway from all of these brainstorming sessions and all of that? What is the need now for Nigerians, apart from the, quote and unquote, bad news that the President just dropped like hot potatoes on all of us?
I think, just to clarify, the President did not decree that June 1st there will be. The President said, I think we've agreed. That means the regulator had already indicated to the President that June 1st was the date for that. So, because this might send wrong signal to investors. The rate making in Nigeria is not politically decided. It's not the President who decides the rate. He doesn't decide when it will happen. Otherwise, investors would not like a system where prices are dictated politically, because you might also have a president who might not have the good sense to do that very well. So the truth is that NEC went through the process, determined the tariff, and made the President to the economic management team where the President presides and the Presidential Action Committee on Power. And NEC decided, we had already resolved in our resolution internally, that June 1st should be the date for the coming into force of this tariff structure. So what the President really did is, because there are macroeconomic political considerations, as a responsible regulator, you have to also go back to the President to say, these are the threats, these are the situation report, especially as the condition of energy sector is not as we had predicted. We had expected better energy supply, but unfortunately the seasonal problem of rain and the hydro caused a dip. So the President needed to re-emphasize that we need to get on track with the schedule and do everything. That's why he made a point. He said, look, I've not seen sufficient advocacy. I think it was right. It's right, because by that morning we have sent to him a comprehensive plan of what we want to do. And the advocacy is not just about doing on television. It's not manipulation. It's not just slicky communication. It's also about substance. So what we are wrestling with as a regulator is to say, what do we do to assure Nigerians that post-June 1st, things will improve? We will not have more energy. I mean, we can get additional 200 megawatts, additional 12 megawatts, but essentially we're not looking forward to a massive haulage of power.
Doesn't that make the advocacy that the President was talking about, does it not make it a Herculean task here?
It's totally Herculean, and I'm sure the President knows that. It's Herculean. I mean, I do tell people who don't have power
that they have to be paying more.
But that's
for what they don't even have in the first place.
The challenge of leadership is to help people face reality, and that depends on three things: truthfulness. People are smart. That's my presumption. They know when you're lying. They know when you are laundering the fact. They know when you are doing just mere PR job. And they know when you are summoning them to a higher challenge of facing reality. Number two, credible communication people. You don't just say, okay, this is not a business for fixers. This is about people because they have a history of being honest. And thirdly, there must be some symbolic evidence of change. So we can say, for example, for NEC, we say metering is one thing we can give Nigerians. We can say, okay, between now and June, we should show evidence of greater commitment to metering. Two is estimated billing. I'm not comfortable to approve any tariff if there will be reckless estimation of people. They don't consume, you have no meter for them, every month you give them crazy bill. That will not happen. That's irresponsible. That will ensure that people revolt. That will undercut the regulatory certainty that investors want. Investors are not animals who just want you to fix a high tariff for them, and then once they come, they are lost in a conflict, in violence, in chaos. Just last month, Bolivian government nationalized their privatized electricity assets. Why? Because the regulatory framework was not strong, and the new investors did not make the required investment. Not just last week or 2 weeks ago, it was everywhere in the world.
Something close to what we also did in Nigeria. We privatized some things. Those who bought didn't make the required investment.
That is why the president is emphasizing, the meeting we had in the working group on privatization, I made a point that we should make sure that the right guys win, because if they come, NEC will insist on performance contracts. This is what you must deliver to the sector. And if you don't deliver, we can't give you that tariff. And I think so the idea here is the people, we're going to go to the people and say, you need to pay this tariff. You need to pay it for two reasons. Yes, things have not improved. We're not saying pay because suddenly there's power. We are saying that the truth is, without a just and fair tariff, the investment cannot happen. And that's what the president is actually talking about. It's not about going to the civil society and media and trying to confuse them. They know the facts. The issue now is, can we make a commitment for the future that no more corruption, that CEOs who manipulate, who exploit the people will be handed over to EFCC. One of the things we told the president in that meeting was that we should explore the possibility of maybe a new technical board, remove everybody. But that has some problem. But at least in the minimum, we want a commitment from the Ministry of Power, from everybody, that the regulator will be allowed to discipline those who fail to satisfy Nigerians. We can't, it is irresponsible to say, Nigerians, pay this tariff, expect nothing. It's not going to happen.
Okay. In clear terms, because we are trying to do something today, we'll try to see if we can allow some contributions into this. We'll make the phone line available. But let me just prepare the ground for that. In clear terms, from 1st of June, what will happen?
From 1st of June,
yes,
a new tariff will start. And that tariff, three things about that tariff is critical. One is the people who we call the poor, urban and rural poor, and technically defined as those who consume not more than 50 kilowatts per hour per month. The problem we have is that you don't have effective metering. So we're working out how do we determine this people. Fine, that's a challenge, but we're going to do that. From 1st of June, they are actually going to likely pay less because we have removed meter maintenance fee. And this is one of the things we're going to do to complicate. We told Nigerians that meter maintenance fee, I told them that it is obnoxious, it's atrocious, and I will remove it by December. And it's removed.
Meter maintenance fee is what that they add to when you want to buy a recharge card.
Yes, whether you have the ability. And the worst part is that you don't even have a meter, and even if you have nobody's maintaining it and you're paying, that's off. Secondly, this poor category of customers will not pay fixed charge. That means in every billing system in the world, you have two components. You have fixed and energy charge. Fixed is, for example, if you want to run this AIT, this broadcasting company, you buy your equipment, you hire staff. Whether you have enough time to run 24 hours or not, there are sunk costs that are already sunk, no matter what you produce, whether you produce 2 or 3, or if you are doing a newspaper, you have a newsprint, whether you print 10, 50,000 or 50,000, the machines are already. So what we do in regulation is to share that cost that are fixed across all users. So that's why people say, we didn't get, even if there's no light for a whole month, 0 light for you, you will still pay something. Now what we have done for the poor, that is totally off. So if there's no light, you're a poor customer on R1, if there's no light, you pay just nothing. So what they're paying is only 4 naira.
So we have urban, you said?
Urban and rural poor.
Urban and rural poor.
On R1 class.
Okay.
So they will pay no meter maintenance, no fixed charge. And across the country, they pay only 4 naira per kilowatt hour. 4 naira.
4 naira.
Before, they used to pay, in some cases, they were paying 5, 6, inclusive of meter maintenance. And meter maintenance was about 40% or 50% of what people pay. Sometimes when there's no energy, it might even go up to 80%. So they are actually enjoying huge subsidy. The federal government gave 50 billion naira, and this 50 billion was spread between R1, R2, C1. Now let me talk about R2. R2 is what is the largest consuming class. 80%. It includes you, it includes me, it includes a minister. The problem with that classification, and we're going to work on that, is that it brings in many people together. People who can even pay more and people who can pay less. But the good news is that that category of customers are paying just 11% increase. So from 10 naira per kilowatt hour today to about 11 naira 50 kobo, depending on what you pay. And that's the third issue about this tariff. The third issue is that this tariff is differentiated according to where you live. For example, Abuja, Arutu in Abuja may pay less than Arutu in Rivers. And the idea is the cost of serving you in Rivers is high. Some of the companies are not very efficient in terms of recruitment. They have more staff and wage. So when we do the revenue requirement, we look at what the cost profile. But the good news out of this is that it will push incentive for everybody to do better. Because if you do better in terms of minimizing costs, then your customers will take that benefit because they will pay less. So we have differentiated the category of customers in order to create opportunity for incentive. Another example, a state government can also, because it has more money, can decide to close down on the cost by providing some kind of subsidy. That's left for them. They can provide a cost subsidy to the disco and say, even though it's supposed to be 12 naira.
Like their own individual state might.
Yes, so they can do that. The framework allows them to do that to further reduce the impact on their citizens. It can be their own democracy windfall. So if you're like Akwa Ibom, you are rich, or you're like Rivers or Delta, you have a lot of money, you can say, look, energy consumption is critical to us. So it allows you to minimize, to be efficient. And then, so you take advantage of investment you make that helps in the efficiency. The third thing is that the C class, C1, we have C1, which are basically artisans, medium, small enterprises, welders. The principle of rate making we have used is to two things. One is cost recovery, optimize revenue. You must recover all the costs. So if they're putting 2 billion, you want to make sure that the revenue equals total cost equals revenue. 2 billion total cost equals 2 billion revenue. And that includes plus return on investment and all that. Good. So, but at the same time, the second principle is optimize equity. Make sure that those who can't pay less, and those who consume less pay less. Third is ensure that the tariff helps in economic development. And so what we've done, if you look at the driver of economic development are the small, medium enterprises. But the people who contribute much to household income in terms of, your artisan, you do pure water, you have a hairdresser. So it's wrong to overburden them with energy costs. And so what we've done is to spread that 50 billion also to them. So they will pay significantly less, maybe 11% in their bill. The R2 will be paying fixed charge of 500 every month, unlike before when the fixed charge was higher than that. So we'll make it just, so whether you consume or not, the only thing you pay every month for sustaining your meter or being a customer is just 500 naira every month. So what we've done initially we were thinking about maybe 1,000, 2,000. I said no. My argument was simple, that we are not like going to have enough power to have steady electricity. The implication economically is that you are going to penalize people for no power if they say they should pay 2,000, for example, whether that's a monthly fixed charge. But if it is reduced, then they are paying more for what they have consumed. So it makes more economic sense. They are paying more for consumption and less for no consumption. So we put that 500 naira. So if you look at this tariff properly, really, it's a tariff that is not going to be overburdened on the people. But the problem, the challenge, I want to do that together with the Nigerian people, is to ensure that before October, when the new owners come, when the privatized entities, when it's privatized, between June and October, let there be more efficiency, let there be less corruption, let there be less estimation, let there be more metering, let the discourse provide forum office for complaint, let the regulator NEC be stronger in enforcing the code, let the ministry and the presidency respect the rules of the game by allowing the regulator sit on top of this job. That's the challenge for Nigerians. I will not, it's unethical, and I'm not going to breach the principles I stand for me to say this should be a windfall, to reinforce corruption, to allow CEOs to run riots, to further punish the people. I have lived my life totally in support of truth, in support of the people, in support of sensible economic policy. But I'm not going to, we won't miss the opportunity to help this sector to move on by having the cost-effective tariff.
And anyhow one looks at it, what one pays for electricity now will increase no matter how marginally.
Except the poor, the very poor.
That won't have increased compared with what they were paying before. Now the arguments against this are that this is driven mainly because of profits, because we want to deregulate, and in order for you to attract the investors, you are throwing all of these open. So profit making. I'm talking of what we, your colleagues on this side, where you have left us, the civil society. The argument,
I've not left you.
the argument, the way they will understand, this is all about profit. That's how it will turn out. In this case, wouldn't it have been better if the horse had been placed before the cat, rather than the cat before the horse? In other words, improve on the electricity supply. Let Nigerians see that they can actually have, if not 24 hours power supply uninterrupted, at least 15 hours, 18 hours. But that is not going to happen.
Absolutely.
Between now and June, when we will be paying more. So it's a question of the cat being before the horse. By presidential fiat, where this chicken and egg jigsaw is being resolved against us, or we the people.
I think first, there is no presidential fiat here. I mean, as a regulator, I'm worried about how the market perceives whatever happens. The president simply re-echoed what the regulator has said. And in good sense, this tariff should have come in since January, don't forget. We took it to May and then June. Because we were also like you.
Could you have added an extra body to Nigeria in January where subsidy was removed?
No, I'm coming to, even Mr. President, as he sat in that chair, he must be agonizing. Just like us, the decisions are not made with perfect information. The parent didn't just say, you know what, Nigerians, like it or not, you must pay in June. No, the parent would have thought about it and said, look, can we shift this small? As I was coming to this program, I was reading a book, and the argument is that when you're a civil society person, or whether a military, when you come to politics, in different contexts, it's quite different kind of leadership. Now look at it this way. My position would have been, and many people think about it, that we don't put this tariff now. We wait till probably October. But there are two risks you must control. We are in a terrible state, energy-wise. Everybody knows that. Even if we don't increase tariff, even if we don't bring investors, we are going to. In fact, it's a matter of time before we totally die out of darkness. So the challenge for leadership is to say, the investors, argument people put to me is, look, investors are worried because first, you are politically risky. The idea is that you have suffered several policy reversals. People don't believe in you. They think that you can't insulate technical decisions from political decisions. Now, if you come up again and say, because the people may not want to pay, we'll put it July or August. One of the risks is that the people might think, Oh, that means even in October, if people are still not willing to pay, you will still not get it done. So that might hurt them.
But the reason why people are not willing to pay is so it's not too difficult to have.
No, I'm coming.
Because the light is just not there.
No, but
if I have light 24 hours,
you pay.
Precisely.
But the point is that,
but I will agonize to pay one extra kobo when I get home every night and there's no light. And I spend money to buy diesel and to maintain.
You ask a good question. The question is, it says, it's resolved against the people. I don't know what people think about, whether they're thinking for the investors. I'm thinking about Nigerians. I'm thinking about availability. Fundamental right of every Nigerian is to have light. But the question is, I think in duality with two brains. First brain is idealism. Every Nigerian should have light. Second brain is realism. But how to produce light? It must be priced. Somebody has to make investment. So when this tariff comes into effect and Nigerian people are protesting that have no light, one part of me will protest with them there and say, give us light. The other part will be saying, let's have the tariff. The same way I told you here when we were doing fuel subsidy, I support removal of fuel subsidy. But I also support Nigerians the right to protest against corruption, against governance deficit. Let's focus on what made us to be in this shit right now. We didn't have proper tariff. We allowed NEPA to do whatever they like. We politicized energy management. We allowed corruption in full reign. We allowed insider dealings, and all politicians who cloak their selfish interests make investments, or contractors. They can't deliver. And I said that in that meeting. I said they can't deliver because it's politicized. A new book just came out called Why Nations Fail. Fantastic. It comes back to the old argument. Nations fail because they don't have institutions that are efficient enough to allocate and produce efficiently. Going forward, people have to pay what I call inefficiency cost. But in paying it, they should have the right to say, show us how things improve. That's what I'm telling you. So to answer your question smartly, if we don't make this investment, if we don't pay cost of the tariff, I'm not saying 100%, the investors may not come. If they come, they are going to be jittery. And imagine what it means in October when the investors come and we say NEC announces a new tariff. You will say, oh, this is a sweetheart deal. So what I think is, let Nigerians ask for more. Let's, like I said during the subsidies, I said, let's not end at subsidy. Let's ask more questions about governance. Let's ask questions about NEC, regulator. Hold us to the fire and say, regulator, how come when my meter is damaged, I pay the same 50,000 to install it when you say meter is free? When you said meter, for example, the cost of metering is in this tariff. And henceforth, every CEO will tell us every month this is the number of tariff, because the cost is in the, when you take the money, you tell us the number of meters you are going to put out. We verify. And I'm going to say that when a CEO fails, the ministry should also agree that when we ask that person to be removed, the person should be removed. Not removed for political issues or probably don't like that person. Should be removed for failure to deliver service. So,
and not removed because it's from a particular part of the country.
Or because it's not your friend or whatever. So there are big questions to be asked, and I'm supportive of Nigerians asking those questions. But what I think we shouldn't do is to avoid this, to foreclose this moment that we have a president who has sworn there, told that he has no interference, and I can tell since he started this job, the president has never interfered. He didn't interfere with the proposal of this tariff. Many people interfere, definitely not the president. So with that kind of leadership, I think we can move on. Okay. We can eat this bullet, and this bullet will transform into nourishment to our people. It looks
all right. We'll see how the people react to this. We're going to be displaying the telephone number on the screen shortly, but it's 09-462-5203. 09-462-5203. Please try to make your contributions very short and straight to the point if you are asking a question. If you are making the contribution, also brevity should be the watchword. In other words, keep it specifically simple. Okay, let's ask some of the questions before we begin to get the calls. The success of all of this depends on so many things. One is effective metering. Yep. By June, are you assuring us that all parts of Nigeria would have been covered in terms of metering? Because if it is not, and then a new tariff comes into effect, and then you are talking about abolishing estimated billing. That means those of us who have meters are going to be the ones that will be bearing the brunt.
That's a very intelligent question. See what is going to happen. Nobody can promise you, even if the Americans, with all their wealth, I don't know which is the more richer country now, richest country in the world, America, cannot meter all this discourse, everybody by June or even by 6 months' time. But what will happen is this first.
Okay, I will allow you to explain what will happen, but this caller has been on the line for some time. Is Yakubu joining us from Lagos? Yakubu, good morning. Lagos. Yakubu, good morning. We can't hear you. Are you there?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Benga, are you hearing me now?
Loud and clear.
Yeah. You see, you already asked that, Amadi. You already asked the question that I really want to ask him. The question is this. He wanted to collect more money from we Nigerians. Where is the light? As I'm talking to you now, I'm running with generator right now to watching this Focus Nigeria because I don't used to miss this program because it's educative. One, I'm using prepaid meter as I'm talking to you now. The prepaid meter these people giving to us, the question is that they say that the meter going for 25,000 naira, but I paid 35,000 naira to get this prepaid meter. What is it going to happen to we that we are using the prepaid meter when the tariff is increased? Now, they told us that the prepaid meter is good for 25,000 naira, and then the NEPA people told us that if you want to collect this prepaid meter earlier than 3 months or 6 months, you should pay more than that 25,000 naira, which I did, because the charging they're giving to me when I'm using the former meter is too much. They are giving a shop. I'm running a shop. Every month they are giving to me 15,000 naira, 10,000 naira. That's why I rushed to go and pay prepaid meter. And then I was forced to 6,000 naira for that prepaid meter instead of 25,000 naira. What is going to happen to us? For a shop to pay 15,000 naira every month. Good morning.
Thank you, Yakubu. Thank you. You are lucky you paid 35,000 naira for your own prepaid meter. I paid 50 for a 3-phase meter. And the funny thing, again, part of the things that you'll be confronted with. I was given a meter that every month I end up paying nothing less than 15,000 naira to buy the charge card. And my suspicion is that that meter is either wrong with it. I've been trying to get NEPA for over 2 years to either change that meter or look at it. Nothing has happened. So every month I paid nothing less than 15,000 naira on the charge card. And yet we are talking of lighting that is also not regular. Those are the kind of questions you get from Nigerians.
I saw that people are really, really stressed. But the question is, when will they get out of this stress? When will this end? If we don't take these very difficult decisions, this time going forward. I give an example. In 1984, NEPA then was charged to make sure that they charge a tariff that allows them 40% so that they can reinvest in the network. They didn't charge good tariff. We said, okay, nobody should, we just pay flat. So the point is, the question, back to the question, metering will not be completed. No doubt about that. The reason why we are privatizing is that we hope that the new owners will come with greater skills, resources, and invest metering. So NEC will show. But what happened is that already there are money in the tariff for metering. They should be able to deploy fast metering. Second option that banks, Diamond Bank has come to us with presentation, and they're going to make it to the minister and the CEOs in Enugu, saying that they can finance this. If the government the government failed in the past, metering should have been a national emergency. You finance it through a PPP platform, and people will repay. Secondly, I think we should also think in terms of issue about estimation. We didn't say we're going to abolish estimation, no. What we say is that we want to standardize the fish estimation so that you come and we approve how you should estimate people close to.
Okay, in terms of getting the meter,
yes,
we Nigerians have to pay for the meter, like so some of us pay.
No.
Okay, so what do you do when you need a meter?
What you do is this. You request a meter. you only pay what you call connection fee. That's what's approved. And connection fee is just the fee for the wire.
Oh, okay. I have a question there. Which is that should Nigerians even ask in the first place? Because the essence of this is that everybody had to be metered. Whether you like it, you need it or not, whether you request it or not, you need to be metered. Every house ought to have.
Metering should be the responsibility of the disco. But because those who run the disco now prefer estimation, that's why they make their money for their pocket.
All right.
But the owners will go out and meter you. And when you are building a new house, you have to apply for metering. That's what the rules require.
Okay.
So it's because the people don't like to meter in the past, because it's more economic.
It was a win-win situation.
It was beneficial.
Those who didn't want to pay and like to just pay a little and enjoy life. And then those who do, who also want the money and don't want it to go to government.
Absolutely.
All right, Ajibade is joining us from Ofa. Ofa is in the Kwara State. Ajibade, good morning. Ajibade, good morning.
Yeah. Menga, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think Mr. Dr. Amadi should realize one thing. And the thing is that, look, before we can buy this your new idea of a new tariff, look, there's no light. How do you now convince me that even after I start paying a new tariff from June, and then the light is not there? I think with this your tariff, what you should have done is to allow the investors to come and table it before them if it's agreeable to them. By that time, maybe the power situation have improved. Tell me, in quarter now, the power situation is so terrible, and then you are saying from June you start paying more. I think you are being unfair to Nigerians. Let the light be there, as Ben Garadli said. Let there be light first. Then, if you now ask us to pay more, we won't have any reason to say no. But we can't pay for what is not there. That is the situation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ajibade. Again, is the chicken and the egg situation. Which one comes first?
Well, I believe that whatever people say, we should listen to them carefully and learn.
And the assurances. The government has not been forceful in the assurances to Nigerians that the light situation or the power situation will improve. I listened to the Minister of Power yesterday. It's the same old rhetoric, the same old excuses. Water level is down in one hydro power plant. We can't get gas to supply to a particular NIPP project. I think we didn't know that these NIPP projects will require gas to fire the turbines before we establish them. Is Nigeria the only place where rain doesn't fall at a particular time, and so we are subjected to all these seasonal problems?
Well, the minister's press conference in Lagos, I didn't listen to the one yesterday. He made it very clear. He gave strong promise that in the next 2 months, things improve. And like I tell you, I don't expect that we will be worse off than we were last month. Things are going to improve. Energy supply. One problem with energy supply. And that's why we have made the embedded generation regulation. I spoke with the governor of Rivers State, and he's going to call the governors who want to show them how we can leverage on these 3 regulations and increase power in the short. There are 2 ways. One is the NIPP. NIPPs are hope for power certainty. The other ones are the power that's being contracted to the bulk trader. It will take some time. But in between, we can do small power solutions. Lagos State is doing that. Rivers is doing that. We can decentralize power to be able to create small renewable power to assist in bridging this gap. But the point to bring out is this. I wanted to think about a generation. They say a statesman think about generations. Politicians may think about one term. I want to think about generation. Where will Nigeria be in the next 10 years if we don't do major reform? My worry with government, and I'm in government.
Except that we've been talking about this power reform, right from Obasanjo's tenure to
what I would tell you that what I would tell consumers is that things are bad, but things are better. Since Jonathan came in, or even before Jonathan,
at 3,500 megawatts,
things are better because
you know that cities in South Africa, some city, for example, in South Africa, has at its disposal more than 5,000 megawatts. That's just one city.
Airport of Dubai has probably more than
Let's hear from this. Might be just our last. Okay, we may still be able to take 1 or 2 more calls. Donley is joining us from London. Donley, good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes,
good morning.
I hear you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing. I've been watching your program consistently, and I discovered that the person that is with you now, that is Sam Amadi, is somebody that has to be trusted. You know, Sam Amadi is somebody that I do watch on this program that have a focus, and whatsoever that he's saying, we have to believe it. The reason why I'm saying that is that for the past almost 3 years now, each time you invite him to this program, he tried to do something that no man has done. And going back to his former place of work, we've been watching him. We know all his antecedents. We discovered that he remains focused. Besides that, the question I want to ask, have they taken a reasonable step to know how many people they are giving life to in Nigeria? Because in London, what they do they know the number of people they are governing? Do they know the number of people they are giving life to? They haven't known that. They just come and say they are giving life. All I expected them to have done, let's take Ikeja, for instance. How many people are living in Ikeja? If you're able to tell us how many people are living in Ikeja and how are they going to be expanding in the next 1 or 2 years, that is where you have to focus on. If you do that, you will discover that those people who are battling on corruption will be waved out. They will not be there anymore. That is where they see. Go to take Port Harcourt, for instance. I know a lot of people who are working with NEPA. Year in, year out, they keep building houses. These are small boys. They take people 12 to build houses. Have you been able to check that? That is where the problem lies. But I can't worry. We live in London. Each time you say you are coming back home, this is always the case. Even your children will say they are not coming because they won't be life. That has been the situation.
All right, Dolly.
If you can check that, I think the problem will be solved.
All right.
We still trust you because I know you are antecedent.
We know he's antecedent too. He's our ambassador in the government. That's why there's so much expectation.
Well, I think the last speaker,
yes,
he has hit the nail. You see, I want to
proper enumeration of housing and consumer.
Why are we in this situation? The system failed long time. You're talking about South Africa. The economic advisor in the retreat gave us a presentation that shows how other countries succeeded. I talked about institution. He talked about strong regulation. I used to they made consistent investment over time. We didn't do that. You're talking about system planning. That's what we are focusing now on. We are doing electronic ARP resources planning for the industry. We want to know all the details. You can't do planning. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. Lagos State is doing electricity audit of all the electricity installations in Lagos State. Great job. They should be part of it, and I'm delighted. I will say we're going to do that. The CEOs should know. Sometimes they don't even know who is their customer, because many of the customers are not metered. And if those are not metered, yesterday somebody came to my office and talked about credit check. Some people are owing PSN in Imo State. They'll come here, they're owing billions, they come here, and they'll apply for power, you give them. There's no system to say this guy is a debtor to PCN in this district. So the main things we have to do. But the question I want to say that, you asked a good question. Things have not improved if you are counting megawatts much. But things have improved. Things have improved. Before 2009, we were 2,000 and so on. But now we have never gone beyond
3,000. So 3,005.
Very minor.
When we need 40.
I agree with you. But how do
the minimum.
You failed from 1893, 1896 when you had Ijora. You didn't make the investment.
Okay, just a quick question here. You alluded to states that states can bulk purchase something like that on behalf of their citizens as a kind of democracy dividend.
Yes.
You know, like their own individual might subsidize the tariff.
Yes.
What would be a need for states, for example, that already have invested heavily in power? Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Rivers, I think Delta as well.
In fact, I spoke with the Akwa Ibom governor. I said, NEC has just approved independent transmission network regulation. You know what it does is that Akwa Ibom problem is that they have distribution, they have power, but they have no transmission. So we now allow them to transmit their power. So what we are doing is that they can embed power in the disco. They can set up a generator. If you add another 100 or 30 megawatts, for example, to Abuja, I give an example, or 50.
Yeah.
It will stabilize power supply as long as enough distribution infrastructure is in place. So the states can set up a plant and say, under agreement, under our rules, they say, Abuja, distribute this power to Abuja. They will still pay you the tariff. But that power...
The states, in that situation, they fix their own tariff, which may be lower than what...
No, because except the state is also distributing the power themselves. But if the state is using the
grid, the national grid to distribute it,
then it has to be within the approval. But even at that, some states can also, like Lagos, take away some government establishment and distribute directly to them. So there are many things we can do to improve this system. But the most important thing, like I want to say, Gwenga, is that in the past we didn't do it well. Now, let's do it well. It will take some time. There's no magic that will make us run away from the hardship of giving birth.
That's like there's no hardship, magic that will make us multiply 1 hour to give us 2 hours on this program.
But we must,
which is the reason why we
must deal with corruption, and do it.
All right, Dr. Amadi, the president has put you on the line, on the firing line, but because you are our friend, because you are our ambassador there, we will do all we can to ensure that you succeed in this mission, which is the reason why we have to key quickly into all of this. We might have reason to bring you back very, very soon again when we have time. Thank you so very much. For the past 55 minutes or so, we've been discussing the unfolding situation in the power sector as regards what is likely to happen from June this year. And our guests have been Dr. Sam Amadi, the chairman of Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. Thank you so very much, Dr. Amadi. We'll be seeing you. All right, that's the program this morning. Definitely we'll be back tomorrow to deepen the cause of democracy. My name is Benga Rulibausi.
Serious.
I wanted to avoid it, and I thought of running away.
You thought of doing?
What are you doing here? David!
You want your game man to stop me from entering your house?
I want to let you know that I will win the competition.
When the thunder strikes, the earth shakes. When the lightning spears by, there comes confusion, devastation, deception, disbelief, love, and dismay. Trust in man is deadly. Your close friend, your worst enemy. The Burning Spear. Burning Spear, a story of multi-identity, suspense-filled, educative, and entertaining. The Burning Spear.
Come on, let's go.
Nonsense nowhere. It's just a bunch of prejudices about the different communities, but nothing substantial about the cause of the conflict. It is becoming expensive to have you there, isn't
it? If it was you that lost your brother, would you do it?
Family ties, a thorn in the flesh.
To be seeing my daughter every day is not small money.
The daughter, when he's concerned,
my pocket is never afraid. Oh, well, I will do everything.
Sky. Yeah, I don't like anything that has to do with jazz. Like, come. It be like say hungry, never why are you rich, Abby?
You know nothing about football, so there's no point asking. Organize your cup and not your body. This one not the couple.
Oh, well, see, baby. It's not my money.
Between three nurses and a doctor, find out what matters in Clinic Matters.
And I wonder what someone like you is doing in such a noble profession where so much courtesy is required. Can you attend to this woman?
Because the nurse who has a pilot just gone into preventative her temperature.
I'm not planning to tell him.
You're heartless.
Is this my business if your husband impregnates another woman?
The only problem I have is with people making silly and grave mistakes, especially in marriage. You are a nurse and not a marriage counselor.
A jealous man that doesn't like sharing some of my personal effects with anybody.
Women are not regarded as personal effects.
Flirting time is over. Enemy of progress.
If my husband comes and says, make I don't work, I go quickly fine.
Budgeting. Questions such as, do we need an NMP in the first place, must be asked. In my view, we don't.
He is the field officer. He has the responsibility to ensure all operations regarding arrest and all that is conducted in the usual manner.
Engaging emerging topical issues in the polity.
The mere fact that we pay for 24 million liters of petrol on a daily basis, which is shocking. And I think by now people should be resigning their appointment.
It's supposed to be a business, but it has become another arm of government, and it's also suffering from the malaise that have bedeviled government in Nigeria.
We want a good Nigeria first.
People that are benefiting at the IOCs. Why? Because they have a tax regime that was framed over 42 years ago.
Stay with Morocco.
Surely. Explore Africa.
Encounter Africa.
Engage Africa.
Enjoy Africa's compelling,
exciting,
and breathtaking
experience
with Kakaki,
the African voice.
Now listen. The law is now beyond argument that the effect of a nullification of a thing, not necessarily an election, the effect of nullification of a thing is to completely wipe out, obliterate, remove, undo, erase, or render it ineffective.
Why must Nigerians pay the crime that has been perpetrated by the cabal?
The Bisi Olatilo Show, BOS International.
I think the congregation tonight should be a period for celebration of the incoming, the end of the legal year, the beginning of the legal year, but a period also for sober reflection.
We have signed into law several legislations whose implementation will help us progress.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
Hello, welcome to the program. This is The Money Show. I am Nancy Lu. Thank you for joining us again today.
Today's edition of the program, we'll be talking about the CBN's independence. Let me refresh your mind that an amendment to the Central Bank Act 2007 passed through the second reading at the Federal House of Representatives, and the amendment is pushing for a bill to prevent the CBN, its governor, and other key officials from spending without appropriation by the National Assembly, in addition to the appointment of a person other than the CBN governor as chairman of the board of the bank. The amendment of the CBN Act, which was signed into law in May 2007 by former President Olusegun Obasanjo, will remove the governor as chairman of the bank's board and subject the bank's expenditure to National Assembly approval. If signed into law, the deputy governors as well as the directors of the bank will all be barred from the board, which will comprise external officials. But the Central Bank of Nigeria has made a statement that its board consists of about 12 members, 5 internal members and 7 external members. Today's edition will be looking at CBN's independence question. Joining me right now to talk about that is Charles Yoyore, a principal partner at Dion and Associates. We will be looking at this issue. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me on the program this morning.
Thank you, Nancy.
Let's get started. What's your own sense, what's your own view of what I've read out so far, what has been in the news as it concerns the National Assembly trying to amend the CBN Act 2007?
My view basically is that the fact that the National Assembly is trying to get involved in what the central bank is doing, it's a good thing. The fact that the central bank is trying to say that the money it issues is not creating value in the system is also a good thing. So what you have basically are two game changers. You have a central bank governor who says that the purpose of which the institution which began to head wasn't being achieved and decided to make changes is acceptable. The members of the House from whom all this power draws over time, for the past 40 years have been excluded from national arguments and debates under military rule. And so for themselves, they're trying to also to define territory. So as I'm concerned, you got two game changers in town who maybe do not understand each other, who maybe do not understand how whatever they mean, whatever they do, because if you look at the central bank wants to know what does it mean to the man on the street, to the trader, to the businessman, to all of those people. The House of Assembly also wants to know, because it represents people, what it means to those various groups. And if the purpose for which any of them is set up as an institution is not working, they have a right to question it. Whether you question it appropriately for now, or you're reacting just to a short-term measure or for a long-term position is another matter.
Can the central bank be totally independent? Because that's the question.
There's no central bank in the world that is totally independent. The central bank is created by an act of law in itself. But basically, central bank, because they take care of what we hold together, something called money. That money stores our value. And what makes it a currency is that it goes around in every place, taking care of all trade and exchange purposes. The man who signs that document for you is the central bank governor, and he's the only banker in town. Every other person basically is an agent banker. As a sixth-form student, I read a book written by the economist in the UK showing the reserve board as an overhead tank and the banks are just the taps in between. So basically, if the central bank governor decides that the currency on which he has signed is not creating value, for which the people have asked him to make sure that value is ensured, he has every right to act to it. Now, that means he needs to look at price stability. Is it possible for him to do that? Look at price stability at very short, quick notices, going through appropriation, and on the evidence, based on the evidence going forward, which are the countries that don't have an independent central bank? No bank is exactly fully independent, but you have to define independence in some terms. 1, how do you appoint the governor? 2, how long does he stay in office? 3, does he have control over price movements and stuff like that? And 4, does he allow it to ensure that money that is being used in the system helps the growth of the real sector of the economy? That's the evidence you need to look at to determine the kind of independence every state government should have. So you have independence based on the politics, independence based on economics, independence based on goal, independence based on objectives. So you might set an interest rate, for example, or an inflation target, and ask the central bank governor to meet that. And if you set an inflation target and the election period is about to come, the government might be tempted to borrow from the central bank. But if it's an independent person, it's unlikely to allow to have that to happen. He won't allow money to be thrown at issues. So, but I said those are broad guidelines. No central bank is really that independent, but he needs the independent to be able to ensure price stability in the system.
Then the question is, where do we begin to draw the line? This matter now, the National Assembly seems to be bent on, okay, you don't submit your budget for appropriation, you shouldn't be the chairman of the board of the CBN as well as the central bank governor. So where should we begin to draw that line of independence and dependence?
Well, I think the issue of central bank governor being the chairman and not being the chairman was rather pedestrian, because at the end of the day, he needs to be the chairman and chief executive. He's actually the only banker in the country by law.
No, but should he be the chairman of the board?
He has to be the chairman, because at the end of the day, those decisions are rather quick.
What happens in other jurisdictions?
Same thing. The chairman is also the central bank of Benanke is chairman, the King is chairman. So, and these are countries that have decided that the interest rate, the price stability is depending on how well the governor comes to a decision as to how this is done. I guess the problem we have here basically is that we've had such a long period of things not being done properly, and maybe the banking system was not acting to purpose. And so we had a new governor who felt, he's also a Nigerian, he began to see some need to bring his own radical reform process in play, which must have stepped on a few toes at the end of the day. But like I said, it's not about the person, it's about the institution.
Do you think it's more of a political vendetta, so to speak, getting Lamido Sanusi, the central bank governor, cutting his wings? Because analysts as well as people have said in the past, or even still say, that Sanusi Lamido is so powerful, so we need to cut his wings.
No,
do you think it's more of a political vendetta?
No, I don't think so. Actually, like I told you, there are two game changers in town. Sanusi says the currency is issuing, is being exchanged without commensurate value coming into play and goods being exchanged, and that cannot be right for the economy. So the asset classes are depreciating. The people who are in the house are saying for a long time they have been excluded from the system. They also need to define where most of this is done. If you ask me, I think the problem we all seem to have is that so much is done on assumption. I mean, I know this and I know that it was done in South America this way, it was done in North this way, therefore we must do it here. Everything we need to do has to be, derived. It must be situated in time and space. How many people are at work? How do we get them back to work? How the currency, the money that we have, how do we make it the currency so that all the transactions that take place, value must be created? That's a rather very complex and detailed activity to do, and I doubt very much if appropriation would be the right way to regulate the activity of that place. I don't think there's any vendetta against Sanusi. I just think that the House has not been active for 40 years. They have every right to define their space. Ultimately, as they begin to define their space, the economy is going to improve. Whether you like it or not, I don't know whether you think what they are doing is right or wrong, but they have looked at the power sector, they have looked at the pension sector, they have looked at the capital market. All of these are still oversight functions. For the first time, they begin to say, look, policy, let's look at policy, which is why they're creating a new law. At the end of the day, what I think should happen is a rapprochement so that we understand clearly how this is done, what is modern practice, which are the countries that have allowed their currencies to be run in a manner that there's not too much influence on the central bank governor, and what have they done well. And those who have decided to keep the central bank governor on the apron strings of the political class, what have they not done well. So it's based on evidence. Basically, you must go forward based on evidence and ask yourself, in this period of time, what has he done? What has he not done? I've just told you now what I think the House has done in effort. I've also told you what I think the central bank government has done in effort. The critical issue is that nation building is a painful process. Those who disagree must come to an agreement, not because of their own selves, because of children yet unborn.
The question also is the time frame, because we're saying this is a second reading has occurred at the House of Rep concerning this, and a lot of people are saying, okay, so the lawmakers can quickly do this within a twinkle of an eye. What has happened to other bills that has been lying before the House since, and why, okay, this has scaled through the second reading already?
What I said basically is that there's nothing that is done by the law houses that cannot be amended. So if this house, for example, rushes the law through and the results get bad, it means we're just taking one step forward and another step backward.
But so people are saying, why the rush? Why the rush?
Well, it is their prerogative to determine what in their interest, in their view, is critical to making sure that the economy works. Of course, in everything that people do, there's always an underlying sentiment. There's always the issue of saying, what is in the national interest? What we're saying is basically that national interest should be informed. And what they're trying to do basically now is saying that if the national interest is saying that the governor shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, shouldn't do that, then how would they correct it? By the way, I'm informed that even the fund that is giving out has been challenged by the director of the bank and the money has not been issued. So it's not as if we are running with people who do not know exactly where they're going. The key here is basically that if you're talking about price stability and all of the functions that attend to price stability, how should the person who needs to do it be allowed to operate? It's not personal. So I don't think there's anything vendetta against them. I just think that people are not used to legislative arm, so they go there and they feel very harassed, and they should not be harassed. Basically, they should expect adversarial functions from the House and from the legislature, because they represent various opinions around the world. And in America, for example, they had two central bank systems, the first one, the second one, and now they have a devolved reserve board around the place, which means that what they see as pricing of credit or interest rates may vary from one place to the other, and the export regime and import regime may also vary differently. So monetary policy, of course, is broadening, it's exchanged on a good basis, and the fact that we're discussing that in this country for now is cause for joy and not unhappiness.
So some people may want to disagree with you, because at the end of the day, they'll be like, okay, probably the House of Reps do have a stance in the sense that the central bank has been challenged many times to bring your budget before the National Assembly, just like other agencies of government, just like other ministries. Same with the NNPC. So it seems as if it's the NNPC and the CBN that are guilty of that act. Central bank hasn't done that. I think in the last 3 years or so, they've been crying about that. They haven't done that. Okay. The question about the bank's bailout was brought forward in the sense that we needed to hear what you were going to do before that intervention. Do you not see this as the posture of how the central bank did that, and also the donations to the bomb victims?
Well, like I said, basically we're not talking about persons here, but if given as it may, let's discuss it in terms of the person. The first issue which you raised basically is why have they not given their accounts to the legislature? The proper thing to do is to explain to the legislature how they have met their inflation targets. And it's not necessary to see what the reserve position of the country is.
No, but I don't even think the House is particular about inflation targets for now. They're particular about how much do you spend, because the central bank has the prerogative to set its salaries for its staff without, the last time I was at the MPC meeting, and the question was raised about the bomb, donation to the bomb victims. Sanusi replied that it's part of our CSR, and the board of the central bank, which he heads, which is the chairman, has agreed to it. So I don't think it's about inflation or monetary or price stability right now that the House is talking about. It's talking about the internal proceedings or the internal procedures of the central bank.
Well, like I said, basically, they have every right to ask those questions, because all of the power that we hold together is collectively held by them, which we then dispense. I am not certain, I don't have the detail as to the contact between the central bank and the House. But I know that in all other jurisdictions, the House has a schedule of meeting with the central bank government to brief them on how most of these things are done. Now, basically, let's not look at this as if it's a far-removed thing. Let's look at it from the point of view of history. What we're talking about here is money. Money is a store of value. Money is what means that rather than me doing trade by barter, I have a currency which holds that value. First of all, it must hold that value. It must move around in such a manner so that for every trade and exchange, for every exchange, there must be some trade of services. Now, that's a complex measurement, especially as economies and asset classes have improved or done. Now, if in the view of the central bank governor, these things are not going to purpose, he has every right to react to it. And when the bank correction started, my view basically then was you have to get in all of those three functions. I mean, what is the liquidity, the base asset base of the company? Have this been disbursed? Has there been any situation where you think that the public good has not been served and private interest has been served? And how well did the discount window work in allowing them to change assets in a manner which the central bank did not know, and therefore meant that all of the assets that they had lost value? If you ask me, I felt that was an appropriate action to take. If you ask the issue of donating to bomb victims, again, that's a very personal issue, and I think there may have been some underlying sentiments. Now, the key issue now is if he's able to convince his board that this is appropriate, then the board is who you should be saying, how then do we constitute that board? Not about the individual himself. If you ask me, for example, you and I in this environment, do you think now that the banks serve you better than before? Do you not think that the velocity of the currency in the economy is any better than it was before? Do you not think that the arrogance and disposition that most who ran these financial institutions carried out in those days has now changed? Is there an improved sense of responsibility? Those are the key issues that we need to look at that will make the economy go forward. But in all of this, and I think we must continue to reiterate this, the House has the right to do what it is doing. They've been closed out of that space for 40 years. They're about to tell you that, no, we're not going to be taken for granted. And I think they've done pretty well. So the two sides of the same coin, trying to change the game in town. I think that there should be a rapprochement. They should begin to discuss these matters properly. They should not allow the underlying sentiments destroy the variety interest of the country and see how we'll get out of it.
What do you think that the board of the Central Bank of Nigeria should remain as it is right now? Well, I don't know. With Sanusi as the chairman, the 4 deputy governors, that's how the board is right now, with 7 external people, a representative from the Ministry of Finance as well. Do you think that the Central Bank board should remain as it is right now? Or Sanusi just hold the position as the former central banker, the #1 banker in Nigeria, and there's a chairman, a different person?
It will be difficult to work out that way. The only thing, because I mean, it's rather a complex issue of trying to separate. This price stability is a small conference of what you need the economy to do, and you must focus on it. Everywhere in judicial you've done well. The chairman remains the chairman and chief executive. What I will suggest is that the geopolitical regions of the country have different history of production, and that's for the House to also look at. I will believe that the Reserve Board working in all of those geopolitical regions, so that their input into what determines the pricing of credit and how much reserve we should have will be determined not just by people only in the center, but also from what I see as inferior geographical regions. So let's have those reserve boards and see what the inputs are.
So you're calling for more a broader.
The reserve board. I don't mind the reserve board in all of the geopolitical zones where we think that the production patterns are close to the same.
What do you mean by reserve board? Are you talking about the reserve? Are you talking about the model in America or what?
Well, because that's an American model. How you see, that's why I keep saying that.
Because each state has its own central bank in America, and it's like, yes, Ben Bernanke is the chairman, U.S. Fed.
The regional is not state.
Yes.
The bank of the reserve board has offices everywhere, but the reserve board that determines what, like if you say, for example, the climates are different. What the farmer wants to do in the north might not be the same what the farmer wants to do in the south. The time when they need to bring in their import or not export might also differ. So it's essential that all of those inputs should be brought in to determine how you set interest rates. So how you define this entirely what will be derived over time. For me to say you should bring an American system will also mean that I'm saying that an assumption of what exists elsewhere must exist here. I mean, we're talking about world class. What is the meaning of world class? All I'm interested in is can you create a Nigerian class that becomes world class, rather than trying to run after things just because you see certain canons and make sure that they work together. And if you ask me, what the central bank governor has done basically is come to the brass tacks of it, determine what he's seen on the ground, and not shy away from taking action as he wants to take it. I keep saying it's not about the person. It's about the institution and how that should be done. And you can't do enough justice to it in an hour's program or even a day's program. So what I think is essential is a rapprochement between the House and the legislative arm and the central bank, which is a vital arm of what we all collectively see to see how best this can work for all of us.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around
what I've just said.
Yes, in terms of, the reserve board. And
I'm saying that you don't necessarily have to copy the American reserve board.
I understand what you're saying. Let's create our model.
Derive your own.
Exactly. That would be world class. Okay, let's come to Nigeria. What's working in Nigeria and adopt that.
That's
I understand. But wouldn't it also be better? Because some analysts have said that. Let's have a board, not headed by Sanusi, but central bank
Not headed by the governor of Central Bank.
Yes, not headed by the governor of the Central Bank. Who happens to be Sanusi now?
Yes.
It could be somebody else tomorrow.
Right, it could be you, Nancy. Yes, okay.
Now, not headed by the Central Bank governor, but the Central Bank governor and his key deputy governors would be in the Monetary Policy Committee that sets interest rates, that sets other things, inflation, or what they are looking at for inflation in the country, as well as cash reserve requirement and all of that. But the board does something else, and the Monetary Policy Committee does something else.
What is the purpose? Everything you do must have a purpose. If you tell me the purpose of which you want that structure,
sets probably the salaries. The board, whatever Sanusi wants to do, okay, the board comes together and meets and probably agree or disagree. Which is why I've said there should be a rapprochement. Let them come down together and discuss the issues. Now, I cannot have all the answers here and tell you this is what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. All I can say for certain is that we must come from a position of derivation rather than an assumption. I don't want to know what you know about all the currencies in the world. I want to know how Nigerian Naira will serve our people. I want to be certain, for example, that the farmer sees value in what he has in his hand. I want to make sure that everyone who has a take-home pay gets some on his pay. It doesn't have to have a different rate. And if whatever you do meets that purpose, so be it. But if you say just for the purpose of changing structures, therefore, this is the only reason why I think you must refer to other territories. What have those who have decided to encumber, to hold back decisions in the central bank with politics done? And those who have allowed the central bank to operate on its own. I mean, let's say the central bank is incompetent at the end of its term, someone else replaces him, or allowing politicians to determine what they expect the central bank to do. The decision is ours, entirely ours, which is why the House is there, which is why the debate is on, which is why we're discussing these issues. Do you think that in all of the activities of the central bank that it has done anything wrong?
It is difficult for one to say whether it has done everything wrong. I can say what I think it has done right. I believe, for example, opening a discount window to which banks can bring in their assets and get value for it, without the central bank knowing exactly what the details of those underlying assets were, created a problem where the profile and the profit and risk profiles of those assets were not well defined, which is where the discount houses were supposed to have been in the first place. So if you hold a treasury bill, you don't want to hold it to term, and you want to get some money, you discount it somewhere in a discount house and use it. But once you put a discount window out there because you want people to be able to finance big ticket transactions, and they abuse the process because the detail of how that is done is not properly being looked at by only a small set of people, you have a crisis. So I agree with him in terms that it's closer than that discount window, in the sense that this currency is ours. It doesn't belong to just him. We just want to told to look at it. It's a situation where so much is happening, like I told you, it's trade and exchange. That's what the currency is supposed to support. If an exchange of currency takes place, whether you call it corruption, whatever you call it, for where there's no value being seen, whether you call it bubbling in the capital market, and it sees that this is not right, and it calls the people to question, and they cannot answer those questions, and he acts in his authority and person, I think that is also very appropriate. Then there's also this issue of FS 2020, asking all of those who look at these things to see exactly if this one helps their services. The exchange or the settlement system, does it help insurance to grow? People who want to send money to their kids in their schools, does it help them send money to their kids in their schools? Those who want to run a small business in one shape or the other, does the payment system we have encourage them without them having too many overheads? Those are the critical issues, and which is why you have this issue of cashless, because seeing if you can increase the velocity of the currency, increase the value of the system. It's not perfect by any means or ways that you can look at, but if all of these things are clear, then I would think they've achieved some of the objectives. I would say, if you ask me, the fact that they had the courage to stand up to what they felt was unfair, what they felt was not meeting the purpose for which the bank was set up, and that was appropriate. That's a large thing to do.
Now, there's also a school of thought that if the central bank is independent, it favors minority of people. But if the central bank has influence of the government, public interest is